This conference will now be recorded.
At 8:34, I call this special city council meeting of the governing body of the city of Blanco to order. Roll call.
Mayor Humphrey,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Soseda. Councilmember McCollum.
Present.
Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Barron.
Present.
Councilmember Devine.
Present. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just have a quick few announcements. The current estimated active COVID cases in Blanco County is 51. The annual police department toy drive is still going on. I wanted to say thank you for all of the citizens and the police department, city staff, the sheriff's office, the ESD, Blanco ISD, and citizens for coming out to the parade on Saturday night. It was a lot of fun. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And lastly, I hope everybody has a safe and happy holidays. We're going to move on to public comments. Do we have any public comment? Thank you. Ms. Retta Martin.
Good morning, Mayor. I want to apologize for all of our confusion on Tuesday night. 5 people or more came in to support Street Scape, and we had read our agenda, our notice agenda wrong. And so it got real comical and real funny afterwards, and so, but we didn't see our thumbs up and things like that going on, and so we kept getting different stories, and I got home and Pam and I celebrated because we did 45, and yes, we just going to go. And, but then it became real confused because we weren't sure that because of the vote, something about vote. And so that was not done. So we had to spend the rest of this week trying to figure things out. We're going to start having our meetings, reorganizing to get our master planner and get our plan. And I just wanted to thank y'all very much for working with us and appointing Mike Smith as our liaison, and that he has worked with us so well, and we appreciate it so much. Appreciate y'all, and and we'll do our best. There's a lot to be done. Our historic square is the heartbeat of Blanco. Thanks a lot, and I had the paper for Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to new business. Item 1, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a reclaimed water contract between the City of Blanco and Chimacho Mio Investments, LLC. Ms. Kinsler.
Good morning, Mayor Council. As you know, we've been working on this for some time. This agreement has gone back and forth between the Harbison's attorney and the city attorney. Is this on?
Now it is.
Yeah.
It was. Okay, is it now?
No.
Is it now?
Yeah.
Want to make sure we were getting this on the record. So the items to discuss are, we have a contract that confirms the reclaimed water sale, delivery, and use by the adjacent landowner, who is the Harbisons. We have a contract that includes annual water estimates subject to city limitations in the contract. It also provides for meter use and sale at 35 cents per 1,000 gallons, which is what this body chose to do several months back. The contract has an initial term of 20 years with annual renewals at the city's discretion. there's an early termination only for a cause, and both parties would have to agree. Just was speaking with the city attorney, and he believes, and I agree with him, that there needs to be an adjustment for the future that applies across the city as far as the amount per 1,000 gallons. So the recommendation, the fiscal impact at this point is that you authorize the city administrator to negotiate and finalize this contract, subject to whatever limitations you may give me this evening or this morning. The fiscal impact, there's potential unliquidated opportunity costs resulting from the contract, fixed price for 20-year term versus a possible market rate increase over the same period. So that's really, in my opinion, the rest of the contract pretty sad. What is before this body today is a fixed price for the contract or rate increases standard across the board, just like they would apply to any other city or member of the city who was utilizing this water. You should have the agreement in your packet.
How does this impact any other potential users that would want to use that water? Is this setting a precedent for all contracts?
Mayor Councilor McClellan, I think if you actually make certain that this agreement is subject to a rate change or rate adjustments that would be across the board in the city, then I think that it would not affect. The thing about the Harbison's land is that it's adjacent to your property and they already have the infrastructure. So it's easy for them to access that. There's nobody else that's going to have that same access that the Harbisons do. However, in the future, if the Harbisons were not able to use enough water between the hayfield and the Harbisons, then you would be in a position of selling that water. If you were to sell it next month or whatever, that water would sell at 35 cents per 1,000 gallons. So it just depends on who your user is. If you had a user, I would think it would be too expensive to truck water in and out of there, but maybe not. And so that could be a potential user. You could create potential infrastructure running it out so that it would be easier for trucks to access. You could work on the easement for that road so that it would be easier for trucks to come in and access the water. You could run infrastructure up to 281, I think is what we were talking about. Run it to a more central location so that it would be easy for people to come up and fill up their water trucks with it. But the way it impacts is the way the council decides whatever your rate is, really.
So I just want to clarify this. We could go up on our rate in the future as a general rate, but this agreement would hold their water use at that rate, or it would not. I didn't see a provision.
The answer is no. They're 35 cents per 1,000 gallon now, but it does not bind you to 35 cents for 20 years.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure of. Okay.
I'm sorry, and I started out fumbling a little bit. So much more to Here's something.
Council, to clarify that, the way that the contract is currently drafted, you're at 35 cents per 1,000 for 20 years.
That's what I thought.
No fluctuation.
Oh.
The recommendation is that you authorize city administrator to finalize with a feature where if the city, generally speaking, sets another rate, that would apply to these folks as well as anyone else.
Okay.
As a matter of, not to target them.
So it's not been finalized yet. Right now, it locks it in for 20 years, even if we went up on new users in the future, but we have the option to go back to them and attempt to have a section that would have them purchase it at whatever rate was standard for all users. So that still
But Mayor Council
hasn't been finalized.
We also have the option to fix it in this.
Right, exactly. That's my point.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Okay, I move that the city administrator proceed in final negotiations for this contract, including an attempt to add the provision that would modify rates in the future to be consistent with the standard, any standard rate increases that the city might put into place for reclaimed water.
Councilmember Barron has moved to have the city admin negotiate the contract between the city of Blanco and Chimacho with the provision to modify the rates with according to what, if they increase. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilmember McKellen has seconded. Any further discussion?
I would also just as another possible negotiation point, perhaps give them the fixed rate for a limited amount of time that is less than the 20 years, if that would, be helpful in there. So I don't know if it would or not, 5 years, 10 years, something like that. And then they're subject to any rate increases that we have.
I would like the city attorney's opinion on that, because I don't know if we should charge them one rate and other
Right.
people a higher rate.
Right. No.
I think that's a good idea, actually, because really what you're after is just some level of flexibility here, so that you're not stuck with a rate for 20 years.
Right.
So some lesser period, like you said, either 5 or 10, where it's fixed, but then starts fluctuating thereafter. Giving those 2 points of flexibility is advisable as well. Either way.
I think we'd like to work on finalizing this agreement and protect the city, but also give you some wiggle room. So that's I think an excellent suggestion to look at some rate of fixed, but open if we can.
Just had a question for the city attorney.
Yeah, I'm concerned that if we have new customers, that we don't have disparate rates there. Somehow we need to be able to charge anyone who gets the water the same rate.
Mayor, council, would you like to give me the parameters of the 5 years and just let me go to work?
Yes. Yes.
And we'll let you know when we, the January council meeting, we'll let you know.
We need to
Perfect.
change that motion. We have a,
Yes, I think we'd amend it so that the city administrator will enter into final negotiations with the provision, with the flexibility to lock the rate for 5 years. And then any additional rates would be at the current city rate would apply for any increases. And that's an option. We're able to take it from day one, otherwise 5 years.
Councilmember Barron has amended her motion to include that the contract negotiations include the flexibility with the 5 years of the rates. Do I need to second again?
Do we have a second? Was there a second?
Yes.
You had a second. Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 2, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a city administrator agreement with Warren Esterbay. Ms. Kinsler.
Mayor, council, thank you. If you look at the second page, Zach, just trying to plug out the elements of the employment agreement. The employment agreement with Mr. Escovy is $152,000 annual salary. After the first year's evaluation, if your administrator performs at a satisfactory level, it's an automatic 5% increase or $7,600 for a total of salary of $159,600 after his first year of employment. There is a 6-month severance package included with this contract, reimbursement for out-of-town meetings, 3 weeks of annual leave, a city-issued cell phone. The start date, he just moved it up, would be January the 12th. Is the 11th a Monday? I'm trying to determine if I fixed
Tuesday.
this or not. Okay, and he
Because
moved
I
it
fly
from
to
the 10th
Portugal that day.
Okay. So it is to move to January the 11th. So he will, his first day of work will be your city council meeting. 3-year contract. However, you can give him notice of non-renewal of the contract, but you have to give him 6 months notice. Severance is effective only after 6 months of continued employment. So you have 6 months to test things out before you're obligated to a severance package. So your fiscal impact is your salary and expenses, and I recommend that you approve.
I have a question, Ms. Kinsler.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just a little confused about the severance, the 6-month notice of non-renewal, and also the severance is only effective after 6 months. So how do those line up? Like on day 1, do we have to give 6 months notice if we think we're not going to like it?
So you can terminate within 6 months and not have to pay a severance package.
Okay,
But if you want to terminate the contract.
beyond that 6
from
months.
whatever timeline.
Uh-huh.
Let's just say you would never want to do that. You would never want to say, let's terminate it month 2 and 6 months, because in 7 or 8 months, he could be entitled to severance. But
Yeah.
so that's, you should not, they should work independently.
Okay, so we have a 6-month trial period basically before any severance has to be paid if either party isn't.
That's correct.
Uh-huh.
And there is no severance for non-renewal. Is that correct? So there's if we move ahead, but you give them a 6-month notice for a non-renewal of the contract, that does not involve the severance.
Mayor, Councilmember Barron, that was our intent. I will make certain that the city attorney agrees that that's the way we work.
Okay, so the severance would only apply if in the middle of the contract year, we said, this has been fun, but it's just not working out. Okay.
So, and he did, I've been in contact with him. He also had asked for a certain amount of moving expenses, negotiating, gone back and forth with that. So he's at $3,000 in moving expenses right now. And he would have to turn in receipts.
Is there a motion?
I know that this is probably hard to swallow. It's a lot of money. But I think we all can agree that hiring a professional administrator is what Blanco needs. And the nice part about Mr. Escovy, I have a whole different set of skills than Mr. Escovy does. And his skills are in planning and zoning and development. And so I'm finding some comfort in that. And that I feel like if I had to go and pick somebody for you, I don't know who it would be, but those would be skills that I really think you need right now. Just want to give you my 2 cents, see if it makes it a little more palatable. And also, if you, Mayor and Council, if you decide that you're not comfortable with this contract and you're not comfortable with this applicant or this person, then we can always re-advertise. I would not suggest you re-advertise now. I would suggest you re-advertise in February. And I have committed that I would continue to be, consulting city manager from afar and come here once or twice a week to help. But you did get some qualified applicants this time. And I also want to throw in that I think the staff was very appreciative that every single one of us wanted to ensure that staff got to meet with the potential new city administrator, and staff was very comfortable with your selection.
Is there a motion?
I would move that we go ahead and proceed with the issuing a contract to Mr. Warren Escovy and for city manager.
Can you say with the terms stated in the and
Yes.
$3,000 moving expenses?
Are you okay with that $3,000? I think it's as amended.
Okay. So Councilmember McClellan has moved to approve the city admin agreement with Warren Escovy with the PowerPoint amendments and the $3,000 moving. Is there a second?
I will second.
Councilmember Devine has seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to go on record to say this is a lot and it's hard. When Kelly came on, she had pretty much been proven even as an interim with what she was capable of doing. And we saw that over and over and over again. I will say, because I want the citizens to understand that when we interviewed, the folks that we interviewed were being paid a lot. And there are also there's an amazing demand for city administrators out there. Cities are looking for them everywhere. I also think it's important for citizens to understand that our work conditions here in City Hall are not optimum. For folks that came and looked, some of them ran with their hair on fire into the street when they realized they had no office, they had no administrative assistant, they had computer systems that were yet to be worked out. And in interviewing with some who said, well, if I have that question, I'll just call my department head. If I have an issue with that, I'll just call my director of fill in the blank. Well, once we told them over here, that would be you in all those positions. It's a very demanding job, and Kelly's done an amazing job of it. And I'm stuck because it's hard for me to imagine. She's a hard act to follow. But I do know that after having her here, and I think the citizens would agree, this is money we can't afford not to spend. And we're going to need somebody strong. And we have 6 months to take a good hard look at how he does. And hopefully he will be a good match for us. But I just wanted to say we looked long and hard, and it's a difficult market out there right now.
It's a difficult market, so that city managers just get cold. Since I've been here, I haven't counted anymore how many cold calls I get. City managers are in demand, and the thing that helped you with this recruiting is your beautiful city town. That's what helped you. It was like, oh yeah, that's a place I want to live. So.
And just to piggyback on Councilmember Barron's comments, council has received several emails from citizens that are for having a qualified city admin because they have realized how much Ms. Kinsler has helped the town. So I just wanted to throw that one out there too, that we have had a lot of positive impact and positive comments from citizens. That being said, all in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Welcome to Blanco, Mr. Escovy. Item 3, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the donation of tract of land from Matt and Martha Hurden on Elm and First Street. Ms. Kinsler.
Move on to something happy. That was not easy. Okay, here we go. This is a cool thing. So I was approached by Matt and Martha Herndon, who are in the audience today, about wanting to give to the city. And they wanted to know what steps we would need to go through, so that they could donate a portion of their land as a park. And it was important to them that a Veterans Memorial be included in this park. And then possibly the donation of an additional piece of land for, I don't know, like a potential home for City Hall. There we go. Yeah. So potential home for City Hall. Somebody call that, Ms. Herndon called it the corner of Elm and No Name Street, so I just copied. Next page.
Maybe that was a home for retired city council.
So what I'm going to do is just kind of show you what they're talking about. So this right here is Elm Street. These would be homes. These would be homes. All that's homes. This would be all parkland. There's like a little view. They want walking trails around here. This strip right here on Elm Street, Elm and No Name, because this is Elm and First. So Elm and First is the park like that. Elm and No Name right here, this piece they thought might be nice for a future city hall. And so they wanted to throw that option out for you as well.
Can you show me where is CJ's? There,
CJ's?
the car wash.
Oh, okay, so the car wash would be right here.
Okay.
Josie's would be right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a whole bunch of like shrub and stuff like that, but it's a supposed street. First street.
And again, one of the, just for some discussion and talking about the potential for a future home of City Hall, one of the things that has been discussed in general, especially since Ms. Kinsler's been here, and with downtown revitalization, folks, we are sitting in City Hall in really prime real estate for income for this city. We need as many businesses around the square that produce sales tax and add to tourism dollars, because as we know, our sales taxes provide more money into our general revenue fund than to our ad valorem taxes. So every piece of property that we can hopefully add into the mix for visitors to Blanco and spending money that can help fuel that and feed our general fund will be important. Clearly, we don't have the money right now to do it, but at some point, moving City Hall land acquisition would be a big deal for us, would be a big part of the expense. So to think that we might have some land available that would be in a good location to do that, that would allow us, as our fiscal situation changes, to make that move would be very beneficial. And of course, always the addition of open spaces, more park space, more places for our citizens to gather is incredible. This is an amazingly generous offer.
Mayor, Councilmember Barrett, I just wanted, on behalf of the Hermans, they felt the same way. Get City Hall off the square so that you can collect ad valorem taxes on these two places and sales taxes. So what they're doing benefits the city, obviously, in numerous ways, but yeah, that's definitely one that they mentioned. So fiscal impact, the development and maintenance of the park would obviously be, on the city. However, I don't know how you physically measure the quality of life when you provide those open spaces and walking trails and parks. You have one park right now. And so this is a big deal. And I agree, a very generous offer. Building a new city hall would also have a fiscal impact. Once plans are drawn, the fiscal impact is unknown. The only thing, if you go back to that map, the only thing that I saw whatsoever is right here, that would also bring in ad valorem taxes. But if you bring them to the square, it's kind of a switch versus them developing on it. But I found that this was obviously generous. This was even more generous because there's planned development on that. And they're like, no, let's give it to the city too. So.
I would just like to say what a really generous Christmas gift from the Hurdens. And I really acknowledge your generosity in this gift.
Please.
I'll try to be, can you hear me? I'll try to be brief. For the benefit of the audience, I know the fans are on, do we have the heater on?
Here, it's unfortunately broken.
The fans.
I
don't know if your mic is on. I don't see that little light on here.
There, now.
Okay.
It's on. Yes.
There we go.
Okay,
Yes.
we're good now. This is overnight, this was about 12 years ago, we knew that there was a comprehensive master plan that I was on. And we looked at it, it came about that one of the things, several of the things that's needed for the city was parks, another thing was housing. And then we said, well, let's see what we can do. This was 12 years ago, we knew it wasn't time for it. But as times progress, we think right now is the time to go ahead and start doing things. We know the city needs income. I commend you on making the motion for the city administrator. I hope that leads us further into better avenues. But I have a little drawing here I'll hand out. It might help you understand what we plan to do. This is in the, what I want to say, the conception stage or infant stage. Nothing is laid out in stone yet. Of course, you know, any kind of development, you know, you're going to need somebody to lay out a plat. You're going to need, God forbid, lawyers.
Sorry, Tim.
Like I said, it's in the infant stage. We do want to see it develop. But I'll have these out in a better half second.
Thank you.
The dark spot in the middle of that, is that your home?
Yes.
We're not leaving.
Good.
As Matt said, it is our goal and our hope to stay on the property. We've lived here for 36 years, so it's home. There might be some people saying, what are these people thinking? Well, it's real simple. Without a doubt, Blanco has been very good to us, very good. And we'd like to be able to do something good for the city.
That's it.
Thank you.
There, happier night. Note right there. This is the kind of stuff I love to do. Redevelop over here, develop it. Okay, the next item.
So do we need a motion to
sorry,
move
folks, we
ahead?
do.
Yes, we need
We
a
sure do.
motion.
Thank you very much.
It's Monday morning.
I would,
Not with it this morning.
I would,
So I did just want to piggyback again after what Mr. Hurden said. In the comprehensive master plan that was done in 2004, 2005, over and over again, and it says parks, parks, parks. When they updated it with all the new statistics in 2020, same thing, parks, parks, parks. Everybody likes having green space, so I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the city. That being said, is there a motion?
I move the city accept the generous donation of property by Matt and Martha Hurden as presented and authorize the city administrator to begin whatever actions are necessary to move this process forward.
Councilmember Barron has moved to approve the donation of a tract of land from Matt and Martha Hurden on Elm and First Street, and have the city admin take the next steps for this process to happen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Devine has seconded. Discussion?
Who's gonna mow the grass?
That was addressed. You volunteer.
All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Merry Christmas, Blanco.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Martha.
We're going to move on to item 4, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. To wit, consideration and possible action regarding approval of a contract for the appointment of a city engineer. Ms. Kinsler.
Good morning, Mayor Council. It 'tis the season for RFPs and RFQs. Trying to do everything I can before I leave, so it's a little easier on Warren. So I just want to go through the process and the timelines with you. The last RFQ was done in January of 2019. So that's almost 3 years ago. I recommend that you advertise in December of 2021 for an RFQ for a city engineer. You would obviously post it on the website. We would go to TML with their engineering arm, post it there, and obviously post it on social media and in the paper. I would like a long timeline because it is the holiday season, and have the RFQs due January the 28th. And then we would do the same thing we've done with the other RFQs. Anybody that wants to serve on the committee, we can have 2 council people and Mr. Escovy and whoever else. I would suggest a public works person for sure on that one. Get the committee together, interview the applicants, and see if we want to renew your contract with Freeland and Turk, or you want to go a different direction. And the fiscal impact at this point is unknown. It's determined by usage and whatever the price is per hour. The city attorney should work at the pleasure of the council. And my recommendation that you approve me to construct an RFQ for city engineering services. And hopefully by your February meeting, you would have an update on what's going on.
Ms. Kinsler, I have a question, concern about this, and that is we're right in the middle of construction of the water treatment plant. Is there any, can you speak to any impact that's going to have kind of changing horses in midstream there when we're kind of in the middle of this thing?
Mayor, Councilor Devine, good question. So my answer would be the same as it was for city attorney. Let's just say you went with a different engineer, you would have a transition meeting, but the current engineer would stay with the project still.
See, okay.
You don't want a new engineer come in and learn it, or so, I mean,
Right.
we only have 8 months to completion or whatever. So any wastewater I would recommend, and water projects that they're currently working on. So Freeland and Turk, they would continue to work on those.
Okay.
So anything new would be given to a new city engineer if there was a new city engineer. If not, then your city administrator would negotiate prices with Freeland Turk, and you would have another contract before this body.
Right.
And I will tell you that I'm extremely pleased with the professionalism of Brad Bullock and Tim Tuggy and the way they work together. It's just such an easy transition, and they've made it that way. So kudos to both of them.
So how is this affected by the negotiations we have right now with the party that's going to possibly take over the sewer water plant? Do they have engineering services?
No.
Do we need to wait until that's complete? No.
So
No,
Mayor,
they don't.
Councilman Sasela, they do not have engineering service. Their specialty, that's what they do. They run water and wastewater treatment facilities. So you would still need an engineer.
And I would just say, I think it's really important that we find a firm that we're really comfortable with going into the future. I am optimistic that we will have funding that's going to come through the infrastructure bill, and that we will be designing and planning and implementing improvements to the city's systems, substructure or subsurface structures as well. So it's time for us to really carefully vet engineering firms that are willing to work for us. And I also think we're in a better position than ever because of our CIP Asset Management Committee that is staffed with engineers who can advise us as we look at any RFQ responses that we get. So it's a perfect time to really make sure we've got a firm that'll be right for us, and hopefully one that we will keep for a long time, that will serve us well and that we'll feel good about for a long time, whoever that turns out to be.
Mayor, Council Member Barron, I agree. I cannot even imagine the amount of money that this committee is saving the city. Like, I don't have the brain power to even do that. Wow. So you are getting great bang for your buck with this free committee. And I've always said this from the time I got here, KBB, wow. Two great committees that you all have.
I move we authorize the city administrator to issue, yes.
Not quite,
Oh, you have more?
not quite. I have a question about the current contract with Freeland and Turk. Would, is there a term agreement, like a 2-year or 3-year, or is it up for renewal?
The contract states that you can give notice if you choose to terminate that contract. You wouldn't really terminate that contract though, in my opinion, because that would continue to go. They need to finish the water and wastewater if you selected another engineer. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes, now you have. I move that we authorize the city administrator to prepare and issue an RFQ for engineering services for the city of Blanco.
Councilmember Barron has moved to approve the city admin to put out an RFQ for the city engineer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember McCullen has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 5. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on replacement of infrastructure on Lazy Creek Lane. Mr. Doris.
Thank you. I want to say one more thing, Mayor and Council, before Mr. Doris comes up. I want to thank Zach Doris, because Ronnie, as we know, has been out. Zach just steps up. He does a wonderful job. He did great with this. I was gone. We weren't even able to really talk about it. But going through his PowerPoint, I'm just impressed at the way the Public Works Department has stepped up to make certain that things just continue under Zach's leadership. So great job, Zach.
Yay, Zach. Yay, Zach.
So a little introduction on this line. It's located in the alleyway between Greenlawn Parkway and Lazy Creek Lane. This is actually taken directly from our GIS, but it's essentially from this manhole to this manhole that we're looking at. Within the last 12 years, portions of the line have been replaced, but problems still exist. We frequently receive calls about this line backing up. Next slide, Kelly.
Oh, I think I have the driver.
So what's causing the problems? So the two main causes of the problems we have with this line, number one, cracks in the clay pipe. As you know, we all have some pretty old clay pipe in the city. Basically what that does is it allows roots to infiltrate the line and cause blockages. You can kind of see that's our sewer camera we use, and you can kind of make it out. We don't have the best system, but you can see the roots kind of growing in the line there. And what that does is just creates a, it takes away the amount of area in your pipe. And so anything that's flowing through there, it doesn't take much for it to get caught on that and start backing up. The second issue is the line actually has a belly or a dip in the middle of it, which basically instead of it, flowing at an angle so everything runs nice and smooth, it actually allows that water and those solids to kind of build up before they reach enough to pass through. So it's another issue. Next slide, please. So preventative maintenance. So due to the frequency of the problems with this line, we've taken a proactive approach and have put this, among other problem lines, on a regular jetting schedule. Unfortunately, without permanent fixes, issues still come up. One of the most recent backups on this line actually made its way into a customer's home and caused quite a bit of damage. Since this has happened, we've ramped up our preventative maintenance on this particular line. In addition to frequently jetting it, we've also added a granular chemical that helps eat away at some of those roots, just to try to do everything we can. So one other issue with this line, there's a couple homes and they actually have fences that run directly over top of the main. So it doesn't appear that the fence is like, going into the line or causing any other direct issues. However, in order to replace it, the fences will more than likely have to be taken down, and then we'd have to figure out, how we go about putting those back up, who's responsible for all that. So we need to determine if that would be in the actual scope of work for the line replacement or separate. So the Public Works Department's recommendation is to determine the scope of work which encompasses the entire replacement of this section of sanitary sewer line and to start the bid process. The fiscal impact regarding it is currently unknown. Troy Alexander, I'm sure some of y'all know who that is with Alexander Construction. He's actually worked on this line in the past and he's done quite a bit of work for the city. He gave us a rough estimate of a cost of between $18,000 to $25,000. That was about 200 feet of sewer line that would need to be replaced. However, with the current pandemic we're in, prices and materials and all that kind of stuff is just skyrocketing price-wise. So it is difficult to attach a super firm number. That was the estimate he gave us. With council approval, we can begin to formulate a scope of work and start the bid process, at which point we'll better be able to determine a more accurate cost estimate. We can then present that accurate cost estimate and decide which direction you want to go.
Zach, would you do two things? Let the council know about the sewer backup and also the 50,000.
Yeah, so the 50,000 mark, I don't see it going over that as far as total cost. I think he's actually pretty close to what it would cost, probably a little closer to 25,000 mark. The backups are an issue. Obviously, with the one that backed up into the house, it caused a lot of damage, and I'm sure there's some discussion going over right now about who's going to be responsible for that.
I don't know what the council on those.
Oh, no? Okay, so the address 1206 Lazy Creek Lane, about 2 months ago, we had a pretty bad backup and it went inside the entire house. I don't know the exact cost of damage, but it was a lot. They had to rip walls out, carpet, all that good stuff. I guess we're still waiting on.
I'm working on that. I've got that.
So my question is about, this is in an alleyway?
Mhm.
So we own the easement
Correct.
where the pipe is, but these fences have been put basically on top of the pipe.
Yes.
That's just,
On top of ours.
We've actually got quite a few areas where that's the case in this particular, in the Green Lawn kind of section. I guess it's just, in the past, people weren't paying much attention, and so
Right.
stuff happened.
right. Or the surveys aren't showing the easement or something.
Right. Mr. Alexander, he did say it may be possible to do it without tearing the fences up, but that would add a lot of extra work.
Mhm.
And it may be possible, so it's more than likely you'd have to remove them.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Is there a motion?
Again, I move that what do we need to do? Give the city administrator permission to proceed forward in conjunction with Public Works. And I would like to say also, along with input from our CIP committee in getting the work bid and move ahead with getting it done. Authorize the expense, yes.
Councilmember Barron has moved to authorize the expense and have the Public Works and City Admin determine the scope of work and proceed with the work. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Devine has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Assuming that clay pipe would be replaced with PVC or something.
And that's, thank you, Zach.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Councilmember Barron has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Devine has seconded. All in favor? At 9:24, we are adjourned.
24-minute council meeting.